The clocks ticking filled the room, each sound hammering into Barton's brain like a reminder of the inevitable. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes fixed on Julie, who was calmly packing her suitcase on their bed. The sight of her casually folding her clothes, the same clothes she had once worn for him, made his stomach churn. Julie was humming under her breath, something upbeat and cheery, as if this was just another ordinary evening. But tonight was far from ordinary. "What are you doing?" Barton finally asked, his voice breaking the uneasy silence. Julie didn't bother looking up. "Packing," she said simply, her tone matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the weather. "Packing for what?" Barton's voice was tense, his body rigid as he fought to keep his emotions in check. Julie paused for a moment, as if considering how much to tell him. "A couple's trip," she said, her voice taking on a slight edge of excitement. "With my boss, and you can't stop me." Barton's heart skipped a beat. "A couple's trip? You're joking, right?" Julie sighed and finally looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of irritation and impatience. "No, Barton, I'm not joking. We're going to a resort. It's a chance for me to impress him." Barton's mind raced, trying to grasp the full meaning of her words. "Impress him? How exactly are you planning to impress him, Julie?" She gave him a pointed look, raising an eyebrow as if to say he should already know. "With my stretching skills in bed," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "He promised me a promotion if I do it right." Barton felt the air leave his lungs. He staggered backward slightly, his hand gripping the doorframe for support. "What the fuck are you talking about? You're cheating on me? With your boss?" Julie shrugged, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "It's been going on for months, Barton, and guess what? He's better than you in every way." The words hit Barton like a punch to the gut. He had suspected something was wrong. Late nights at the office, secretive phone calls, but to hear it so brazenly thrown in his face was almost too much to bear. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Julie, if you walk out that door tonight, I swear I'll break your legs. Our marriage will be over." Julie laughed, a cold, humorless sound that sent a chill down Barton's spine. "Dumbo, you know what? Our marriage was over for months when I started fucking around with my boss. I realized you're not enough for me. You're just too blind to see it." Barton's vision blurred with rage. He could barely recognize the woman in front of him. This was not the Julie he had fallen in love with, the Julie he had vowed to spend his life with. This woman was a stranger. "Why, Julie? Why would you do this?" His voice cracked, a mix of anger and desperation. Julie rolled her eyes and tossed a pair of high heels into her suitcase. "Why not, Barton? I'm tired of this life. Tired of you. My boss offers me something you never could. Excitement, adventure, a future. You're just boring." Barton's mind raced, grasping for something, anything to hold on to. "We can fix this, Julie. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage. Don't throw everything away for a cheap thrill." Julie's eyes flashed with annoyance. "A cheap thrill? You think this is just about sex? It's about more than that. It's about my future, my career, my happiness. And you're not part of that anymore." Barton's heart pounded in his chest. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You don't have to do this, Julie. We can find another way." Julie shook her head, zipping up her suitcase with a finality that made Barton's stomach lurch. "I'm done with this life, Barton, and I'm done with you." She pushed past him, her perfume lingering in the air as she walked out of the bedroom. Barton stood frozen, his mind reeling from the shock. This couldn't be happening. Not like this. Not after everything they had been through together. But as he heard the front door open and close, he knew it was real. Julie was gone, and she wasn't coming back. For a moment, Barton felt utterly lost, as if the ground had been pulled out from under him. But then, something inside him shifted. The initial shock and pain were quickly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He walked into the living room and stared at the door Julie had just walked out of. His breathing slowed, and a steely determination settled over him. "If that's how you want it," he muttered under his breath, "then that's exactly what you'll get." The ticking of the clock seemed to grow louder, a reminder that time was moving forward whether he liked it or not. Barton's mind cleared, and he knew what he had to do. She thought she could walk all over him, throw away their life together like it was nothing. But she was wrong. She had made her choice, and now he would make his. He would show her that actions have consequences, and she would regret ever underestimating him. Barton waited until Julie's car turned the corner and vanished before he moved. His body was tense, but his mind was focused. He knew he had to act quickly and with precision. He'd always been the calm one, the rational one, but tonight was different. Tonight, he would take control of the situation. He walked straight to the home office, shutting the door behind him. The room was filled with reminders of their shared life. Photos, certificates, books they'd chosen together. But Barton didn't dwell on these. His focus was on the desk, where Julie's work laptop sat. He knew she trusted him enough to leave it unattended. She'd never imagined he'd have any interest in it. He sat down and opened the laptop. The login screen greeted him, but Barton didn't hesitate. He typed in her password, a combination of their wedding date and her favorite color. The screen unlocked, and her desktop appeared, cluttered with icons and open documents. His fingers hovered over the mouse for a moment before he clicked on the email app. The inbox opened, filled with the usual work-related emails, but he knew where to look. He searched for her boss's name, and a list of messages popped up, each one a painful reminder of her betrayal. He opened the first one, his eyes scanning the screen quickly. "Can't wait for this weekend. I've booked the best suite. We'll finally have some real time together. Don't worry about work. It's all taken care of." Barton clenched his jaw, his anger simmering beneath the surface. He copied the emails, dragging them into a new folder on the desktop labeled Personal. From there, he plugged a USB drive into the laptop and transferred everything. He made sure to get the attachments, the messages, everything that could serve as evidence. He wasn't just going to confront her. He was going to destroy the life she was building with her lies. Once the transfer was complete, he moved on to her work chat logs. These were more casual, filled with inside jokes, late-night flirtations, and more explicit content. He copied these as well, adding them to the USB. When he was done, he deleted the evidence of his snooping, leaving everything else untouched. He sat back for a moment, staring at the screen. There was no satisfaction yet, only a cold, determined focus. The laptop was just the beginning. Barton stood up and left the office, heading toward the bedroom. Julie's vanity table was cluttered with makeup, jewelry, and perfume bottles. He opened the top drawer and found her jewelry box. It was filled with pieces he had bought for her over the years, alongside a few newer, more expensive items he hadn't seen before. He recognized one bracelet in particular. It was a gift she had mentioned from her boss. The thought of her wearing it while being with another man made his blood boil. He took out the bracelet and a few other valuable pieces, shoving them into his pocket. These would be the first things to go. She loved these items, cherished them, flaunted them. She wouldn't miss them until it was too late, and by then it wouldn't matter. Next, he walked to the closet, where Julie's clothes hung in neat rows. He reached for a suitcase on the top shelf, the same one she had used for her business trips. Opening it, he began pulling out her designer dresses and shoes. He stuffed them into the suitcase, deliberately wrinkling and creasing them as he did. She had spent a small fortune on these, thinking they made her look powerful, desirable. But they were just things easily taken away. With the suitcase packed, Barton zipped it up and shoved it under the bed. She wouldn't notice it was gone until she needed it. And by then, her world would have already started to crumble. Barton then turned his attention to their finances. He went back to the office and logged into their joint bank account. The numbers stared back at him, a stark reminder of the life they had built together. But now, that life was over. He navigated to the transfer page, entering the details for his private account. This account had been set up years ago for emergencies, and tonight it would serve its purpose. He initiated the transfer, watching as the balance in their joint account dropped significantly. Julie would notice eventually, but by then, it would be too late for her to do anything about it. Barton wasn't just taking her money. He was taking her security, her future. With the transfer complete, Barton logged out and closed the laptop. The room was quiet again, but it felt different now, like the calm before a storm. He stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured himself a glass of water. The simple act helped him focus, to remind himself that there was no turning back. As he sipped the water, he thought about what he had just done. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about teaching her a lesson, showing her that her actions had consequences. She had betrayed him, shattered their life together, and now she would pay the price. But it wasn't enough yet. He had to make sure she couldn't recover from this. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years, a lawyer he knew from work. They weren't close, but the man owed him a favor. Barton would make sure this favor would be used to expedite the divorce proceedings, taking everything he could legally. The phone rang a few times before the lawyer picked up, his voice groggy from sleep. "Hello, it's Barton. I need your help," Barton said, his voice steady. "Barton? What's going on?" "I'm filing for divorce. I want it done fast. Can you make it happen?" There was a pause on the other end, then a cautious, "Yeah, I can do that. But are you sure? What happened?" Barton didn't flinch. "Just start the paperwork. I'll send you the details in the morning." "All right," the lawyer replied. "I'll get on it." Barton hung up the phone, his mind racing with the next steps. Julie had started this, but he would finish it. She had taken their life and twisted it into something ugly. Now he would take it all back, piece by piece, until there was nothing left for her to hold on to. He walked back to the bedroom and stood in the doorway, looking at the suitcase under the bed and the half-empty jewelry box on the vanity. This was only the beginning. 2 days passed. The living room was dark, illuminated only by the dim glow of the computer screen on the coffee table. Barton sat in a chair facing the door, his heart pounding in his chest, but his mind unnervingly calm. He had been waiting for hours, playing the events over and over in his head, each time becoming more resolute in his decision. Finally, he heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. He didn't move, just listened as the engine cut off, followed by the familiar sound of Julie's heels clicking on the pavement. The front door creaked open, and she stepped inside, her face a mix of exhaustion and irritation. But that quickly changed when she saw the scene before her. "What the—" Julie's voice trailed off as her eyes took in the scattered documents, the open laptop, and the grim expression on Barton's face. Her brow furrowed with confusion and unease. "Barton?" she asked cautiously, her voice laced with uncertainty. "What's going on?" Barton didn't respond immediately. He let the silence stretch out, watching as the unease in her eyes deepened into something closer to fear. He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate, and stepped closer to her. "Welcome home, Julie," he said, his voice steady but cold. "I hope you had a pleasant trip." Julie's eyes flicked from the laptop to the papers strewn across the coffee table. Her face paled as she recognized some of them. Emails, chat logs, screenshots. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice trembling now. Barton took another step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "This, Julie, is proof. Proof of your betrayal. Proof of your lies. Proof of your greed." Julie's eyes widened, and she took a step back, her hands trembling. You went through my things?" Her voice was a mix of shock and anger, but Barton could hear the undercurrent of fear. "Every single one of them," Barton replied, his tone devoid of emotion. "I've seen the emails, the messages, the photos. I know everything." Julie's breath hitched, and she looked around the room as if searching for an escape. "Barton, listen, I can explain." "Explain what?" Barton cut her off, his voice rising. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your boss? How you've been planning this little affair for months behind my back?" Julie's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The color drained from her face as she realized the full extent of what Barton had uncovered. This isn't what you think," she stammered. "Isn't it?" Barton stepped closer until he was only inches away from her. "I've made sure that everyone knows exactly who you are and what you've done. I've sent copies of these emails and messages to your boss's wife, to your HR department, to your friends, your family. They all know now, Julie. They know everything." Julie's face twisted with horror as the weight of his words sank in. "You can't do that," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You can't ruin my life like this." Barton's expression hardened. "I already have, and it's not over yet." Julie's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to him, her voice pleading. "Barton, please. We can fix this. We can work through this. Don't do this to me. Don't destroy everything." Barton stared at her hand, hovering in the air between them. and for a moment he felt a flicker of the old pain, the old love. But it was quickly extinguished by the memory of her betrayal. He stepped back, out of her reach. Everything is already destroyed, Julie. You destroyed it the moment you decided to cheat on me, to lie to me. He pointed to the documents on the table. These are just the pieces of what's left. Julie's tears spilled over, and she sank to her knees, her hands clutching at his pant legs. Please, Barton, don't do this. I made a mistake, I know, but we can start over. We can rebuild. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Barton looked down at her, his heart as cold as stone. You never loved me, Julie. You loved the life I gave you, the security, the comfort. But when that wasn't enough, you found someone else, someone you thought could give you more. You betrayed me, and now you're going to pay for it. Julie sobbed, her body shaking with the force of her tears. Please, Barton, I'm begging you. Don't throw everything away. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll cut all ties with him. Just please, don't leave me. Barton's expression remained unmoved. It's too late, Julie. I've already filed for divorce. The papers will be here in the morning. Julie gasped, looking up at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. No, you can't. I can and I have, Barton said firmly. You'll be served tomorrow. And now you want to get your ass out of my house. I've already moved the money, the assets. You'll get what's left, but it won't be much. Julie's face crumpled, and she let out a wail of despair, collapsing onto the floor. Barton, please don't do this. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Barton turned away from her, his resolve unbroken. He paused for a moment, listening to the sound of her crying, the sound of her world crumbling around her. But he didn't look back. Goodbye, Julie, he said, his voice final. And with that, she walked out of the house. Barton sat in the same chair in the living room, staring at his phone. The screen glowed with unread messages and missed calls, most of them from people he hadn't spoken to in years. News traveled fast in their social circle, especially when it involved scandal. He scrolled through the messages, reading the shocked and bewildered reactions to what he had unleashed. But none of them mattered to him. Not anymore. Julie's life was crumbling, just as he had planned. The first step in his plan had been to contact her boss, Michael. Barton had waited until the next morning, giving Julie just enough time to start realizing the full scope of what had happened. Then he sent the emails, chat logs, and photos to Michael's work email with a simple, cold message. You ruined my marriage. Now, watch yours burn. Barton knew the fallout would be quick and merciless. Michael was a married man with children, a career built on a facade of professionalism and integrity. The scandal would shatter that facade in an instant. It didn't take long. By noon, Barton's phone buzzed with a news alert, a local business scandal involving a high-profile executive. Barton didn't need to read the details to know what it was about. He could imagine the scene at Michael's office. The hurried, frantic calls from HR, the emergency meeting with the board of directors, the public relations nightmare that followed. Michael was suspended, pending an investigation. But Barton knew it wouldn't stop there. The evidence was damning, and the board wouldn't risk keeping him on. Within days, Michael was removed from his position. The once respected executive was now a disgraced figure, his reputation in tatters. For Julie, the consequences were even more severe. The first sign of her downfall came in the form of a cold, formal email from HR, informing her that she was being placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Her once lofty position in the company was now a source of shame. The very people she had hoped to impress with her affair now saw her as a liability, a source of scandal that could ruin the company's image. Barton knew Julie was at home when she received the email. He could imagine her sitting at the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she read the words that confirmed her worst fears. The life she had built on lies and deceit was crumbling around her, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Her phone calls to Michael went unanswered. She tried to reach out to her friends, but they were either too busy or too uncomfortable to respond. They knew about the affair now. Everyone did. The whispers, the sideways glances, the hushed conversations. It was all about her. Barton could picture the desperation in her eyes as she called their mutual friends, hoping for a sympathetic ear, only to be met with cold indifference. She was no longer the charming, ambitious woman they had admired. She was a scandal, a cautionary tale. As the days passed, Julie's world grew smaller and darker. Her once promising career was in ruins. The promotion she had sacrificed everything for was now a distant dream, replaced by the harsh reality of unemployment and public disgrace. She was alone in a way she had never been before. One evening, Barton received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He hesitated before answering, knowing it could only be bad news. The voice on the other end was cold and professional. "Mr. Davis? This is Sarah from the HR department at Julie's company. We're calling to inform you that Julie has been terminated from her position, effective immediately. Due to the nature of her departure, we will be withholding her severance package." Barton didn't flinch. "Thank you for letting me know," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. The call ended, and Barton sat back, staring at the phone in his hand. It was done. Julie had lost everything: her job, her reputation, her future. The satisfaction he had felt earlier was fading, replaced by a hollow emptiness. The balance had been restored, but at what cost? The final piece of the fallout came in the form of a call from Julie herself. It was the first time she had called him since the night she returned from her trip. He debated whether to answer, but decided to let her speak. "Barton?" Her voice was small, almost broken. I just got fired. They said I violated company policy. I've lost everything, Barton. Everything." Barton remained silent, letting her words hang in the air. He could hear her breathing on the other end, ragged and uneven. "Please, Barton," she continued, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you. I know I did something unforgivable. But you have to understand, I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could control it, but I was wrong. I've lost everything now, and I don't know what to do. I need you." Barton felt a pang of something. Maybe pity, maybe regret. But it was quickly swallowed by the anger that still lingered deep inside him. "Julie," he said, his voice cold and detached, "you made your choices. You chose to betray me, to lie to me, to destroy our marriage for your own selfish desires. Now, you're facing the consequences. I warned you there would be consequences. But I never thought you would go this far," she sobbed. "I never thought you would ruin my life." Barton closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "You ruined your own life, Julie. I just made sure you couldn't hide from it." The line went silent, and Barton wondered if she had hung up. But then he heard her soft, broken voice. "I'm sorry, Barton. I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it all back." Barton didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He ended the call and set the phone down, his hands trembling slightly. The fallout was complete. Julie's life was in shambles, and he had orchestrated every piece of it. But as he sat there, alone in the dark, he couldn't shake the feeling that in destroying her, he had also destroyed something within himself. The grim satisfaction he had felt was gone, leaving only a void. The revenge he had so meticulously planned had come to fruition, but the cost was higher than he had ever imagined. Barton sat at the kitchen table, the house eerily quiet around him. The sun had long since set, and the only light in the room came from a small lamp on the counter, casting long shadows across the floor. The house, once filled with the warmth and laughter of shared moments, now felt like a hollow shell, a stark reminder of the life he had dismantled, piece by piece. He looked at the empty chair across from him, where Julie used to sit during their dinners together. He could still hear the echoes of their conversations, the way they used to talk about their days, their dreams, and their plans for the future. But now, those memories felt like they belonged to someone else, a different Barton from a different time. His phone buzzed on the table, but Barton ignored it. He had been inundated with messages since the scandal broke, most of them from people who either wanted to gloat over Julie's downfall or express their shock at how far he had gone. He had no interest in any of it. The revenge that had driven him so fiercely now felt like a heavy burden, one that he wasn't sure he could carry much longer. Barton stood up and walked over to the living room, where the remnants of his plan were still scattered across the coffee table. The laptop was open, displaying the emails and messages that had been the final nail in Julie's coffin. He stared at the screen, the words blurring together as his mind replayed the events of the past few weeks. He had wanted her to pay for what she had done, and she had. Julie had been left with nothing, no job, no friends, no future. He had made sure of that. But in the process, he had also lost something. The anger that had fueled him was gone, leaving behind a void that he didn't know how to fill. Barton closed the laptop and leaned back on the couch, his eyes drifting to the ceiling. He thought about the man he had become, the lengths he had gone to in order to destroy Julie's life. It had felt righteous at the time, justified even, but now it felt hollow. He had won, but the victory tasted bitter. The doorbell rang, pulling Barton out of his thoughts. He hesitated for a moment before getting up to answer it. When he opened the door, he was surprised to see Julie standing there, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a sadness that cut through him. "Barton," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't know where else to go." He stared at her, unsure of what to say. The last time they had spoken, she had been on her knees, begging for forgiveness. Now, she stood before him, a shadow of the woman she used to be. "What do you want, Julie?" Barton's voice was tired, lacking the anger that had once driven him. I just wanted to talk," she said, her eyes pleading. "Please, Barton, just let me explain." Barton sighed and stepped aside, allowing her to enter. She walked into the living room, glancing around as if seeing the house for the first time. The silence between them was heavy, filled with all the words that had gone unsaid over the past weeks. They sat down across from each other, the tension between them palpable. Julie clasped her hands together, her knuckles white from the pressure. "I know you hate me," she began, her voice shaking. "And I don't blame you. I've lost everything because of what I did, and I deserve it. But I need you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you like this." Barton looked at her, his expression unreadable. "But you did, Julie. You hurt me more than I ever thought possible." "I know," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "And I can never undo that. But you have to believe me when I say that I didn't plan for any of this. I got caught up in something, and it spiraled out of control. I was stupid, selfish, and I thought I could have everything, my career, my affair, and still keep you." Barton clenched his fists, the familiar anger bubbling up again, but it was different now. It wasn't the white-hot rage that had driven him before. It was a deep, aching sadness. "You can't have everything, Julie. You chose him over us." Julie wiped her tears, nodding. "I know, and I lost. I lost everything because I was too blind to see what I was throwing away. I don't expect you to forgive me, Barton, but I need you to know that I am sorry." Barton looked away, his eyes focusing on a spot on the floor. He had spent so much time imagining this moment, thinking about what he would say if she ever came back. But now that she was here, all those words felt meaningless. "I've already forgiven you, Julie," Barton said quietly. "But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change what we lost." Julie's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of his words was too much to bear. "So, where does that leave us?" Barton was silent for a long time, struggling to find an answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with resignation. "I don't know, Julie. I really don't know." They sat in silence, the enormity of the situation settling over them like a heavy blanket. Barton knew that nothing would ever be the same between them. The love they had shared was gone, replaced by a cold, hard reality that neither of them could escape. "I think it's time for both of us to move on," Barton said finally, his voice steady. "You need to figure out what you're going to do next. And I need to figure out who I am now without you." Julie nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she whispered. I just hope that someday you can find peace." Barton stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. "I hope you can too, Julie. I really do." She looked at him one last time before turning to leave, her footsteps echoing through the empty house. As the door closed behind her, Barton felt a strange sense of finality. The chapter of his life that had been defined by betrayal and revenge was over. But as he stood there in the silence, he realized that the journey ahead was still uncertain. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew that he couldn't stay trapped in the past. He had to find a way to rebuild, to move forward from the wreckage of his former life. And for the first time in a long while, Barton felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in months: hope. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a small light in the darkness, guiding him toward whatever came next.